Rock, Son of Stone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. I remember those were great comics when I was a kid. I loved them. But I never was a big follower of the of superheroes. But and that was the thing, as I said, I never really had tried to get into the industry until that one book came out, and from there it just opened the doors for me.
Wayne, it's going to be a fascinating conversation. I want to welcome our social media, Facebook and YouTube. We're live streaming now. We're going to start our music. We'll let everybody in and we'll get the conversation rolling. We're here with Executive Director of Veterans Breakfast Club, Todd DiPastino, and comic book creator, artist, writer, Wayne Vansant.
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 Yep. Just like it's spelled.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome. Happy Bastille Day to everybody.
Hi.
I am Todd DiPastino. This is the Veterans Breakfast Club. We get together every Monday night at 7, every Thursday night at 7 to talk about all things related to the military community and veterans. And of course, we're all about veteran stories. And we have with us, this is a long-awaited program, one of the great American storytellers, and that is Wayne Vansant. And he is a premier. These comic book artists are so hard to describe because they're cartoonists. That seems to diminish what they do. You call them artists. That seems to suggest that there's something other than, in the popular arts. Wayne is a teller of stories in pictures and words. And he does it. He's been doing it for a long time, and he's one of the best that we have. And he's been focusing on war stories for the past 30 years of his career, at least. Wayne, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Wayne is not only a great artist, a great writer, a great historian, he's also a great guy. And that's probably because he served in the Navy. Navy produces great people. Am I right, Brad Washabaugh? Yeah. Okay. How about you, Ben? Wouldn't you say?
Sure. Navy people are great.
Yeah, sure. That was less than enthusiastic, Ben.
Okay.
Brad.
Yes. I think the Navy's, what did Woody say? I mean, the Navy's so essential until the Marines
have to get on this
on water. We certainly need the Navy.
But anyway, I basically,
Rick.
I'll talk to you about, yes, sir.
Rick, you're unmuted. We can hear you.
Okay, I am sorry. You said unmute.
Yeah, I know, and I unmuted you.
Right.
I said that what made Wayne a great guy is the fact that he served in the Navy, and I saw you grimaced at that.
Well, I was talking about my friend who passed.
Oh, okay. So
no. If you noticed, when I was out at Bethel Park or at South Hills, I had a Navy shirt on.
Yes, you did.
Without Navy blood, I wouldn't be here. So I don't pick on the Navy.
Your father was in the Navy.
That's right.
And Wayne, your father was in the Navy, correct?
Yes, he was.
What did he tell us about his service in World War II?
He was in the he went into the Navy in 43. He turned 18 in 42 and went in and he was drafted the next year. And he was on well, they sometimes call them sub chasers, a PC 1214. I remember, just had a number, but he was a radio man trained at Bainbridge, and he they did mostly convoy duties of ships coming up from Venezuela to the States. They go back and forth, spend a lot of time in the Caribbean, spend a lot of time at Guantanamo, which so have I too. So we always had that connection of Guantanamo. We always said that sooner or later they're going to close down that prison and make it a motel. We're going to go down and get a room and reminisce, but he's gone, so we'll never do that.
Still waiting on that to happen. Did his Navy service inspire you to join the Navy?
Well, no, actually, I tell you, I was actually in the reserve program. I joined because it was 1968 and I didn't want to get drafted. Well, I tell you, in a way, I was like any young man. I was curious about war, and in a way, I would wanted to go, but I knew it'd drive my mother crazy, and she was the one that found out about a reserve program that was at the Naval Air Station near here, and I went and joined, and I found out after I signed the dotted line that my eyes were so bad that I couldn't be in the air branch. So I says, well, I'll just do regular time in the Navy, and they sent me to an LST. So that's how it came about.
And where did you grow up?
Well, in fact, I'm in the house my father built when I was 10. I grew up in Mableton, which is right outside of Atlanta. It was the country when I was a kid in Cobb County. And I've always lived around here, around Atlanta. The city of Atlanta I can do without sometimes, but this is home.
But that's home to you. And
That's
this
right.
is your ship, LST 1179?
Yeah, the Newport. It was the first of that class. It had the ramp that could be pulled way up and lowered down on the beach a lot closer than the old LSTs. It had a flat bottom so it could get in close to the beach. And because of that, it rolled like a log. But it was like 522 feet long, if I remember right, about the size of a cruiser. And it was home for a couple of years.
And we have some at least one LST veteran. Hey, Rick Arisman, he served on an LST about the same time. Rick, was this your class of LST?
No, mine was the 1156 class, and I believe the last of that class, there were 15 of that, and I forget the last, unless it was just can't remember.
What was the name? Do you remember?
Oh Lord,
Terrebonne Parish.
Mine was the Terrebonne Parish class.
Oh, okay. Well,
And
I was at Little Creek, the amphibious base.
Yeah, well, I was too.
And so
I remember the Newport very well. I was never aboard, but I saw it.
I was around several of the LSTs, and I remember for some reason spending several days on one of them for some kind of training thing or whatever we did. I can't remember which one it was or what we were doing. But
were you on the Newport the whole time?
Yes.
So you didn't serve in Vietnam?
No, we were a brand new ship. All we did was, do drills and sail around and see what we could do. And
so you had the causeways.
Yes. We didn't have those on too many times, but we did have those. Of course, we had a flight deck back in the back there too.
Did you go to RMA school at Bainbridge?
No. Let me tell you, I was in a reserve program.
Oh, okay.
I went on that ship as a deck ape. and I worked my way in to supply in the laundry.
I'll be darned. That's great.
That was the best job on the ship as far as I was concerned.
So you worked in the laundry?
I sure did. I've washed clothes for about 175 sailors and at times as many as 600 Marines. When we had the Marines aboard, they'd always give us a handful of guys to help us out, which was good. But it was just me and another guy were all that worked down there. But man, everybody left us alone. We had no problems. We really didn't. But that ship was decommissioned in 93, I think it was. We had a reunion for that. And it was funny because we went aboard another LSC just like that one. And I remember it kind of pissed me off because that one had two washers and two dryers, and we only had two washers and one dryer. But hey, we made do.
Brad.
LSTs are great ships because they're small, and as a Marine, when you're aboard, you really get to know the Navy crew and work with them.
Yeah.
And just have a great time. I was on the USS 1184, the Frederick, the Fast Freddy, and we were at sailed from Hawaii all the way over to Beirut and around the Western Pacific. Got in some heavy weather. I mean, that ship could handle heavy weather, but you would see the deck flex. And as you tried to eat dinner, Usually they tied ropes around the base of the tree chairs, even though there was clips. You clip in your chair.
Yeah.
In the wardroom, the seas were so rough that you would get launched from your chair and slide across the wardroom.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah.
And normally they would rough seas wet the tablecloth so your plate would not slide across as you were trying to eat. But there was one time I was eating a hot dog and put mustard on it, and the XO of the ship was a real horse's patoot. Nobody really liked him. And my hot dog with its mustard rolled like a paint roller across the tablecloth and got on his chest. And I did the
Good
old,
for you.
I did the old napkin and I'm sorry, and I wiped it where it was like a total. You could see the veins stick out from his neck, and the captain just kind of gave me a smile and said, "Great job there." You know,
It sounds just like ours because we had a great captain, and I didn't like the XO either.
and we would get movies in from other ships and set up the projector and tie the projector down with rope and watch movies in the wardroom at night. And we watched the same movie over and over again sometimes. And we just turn down the sound and say, "Todd, you're this person tonight. And Wayne, you're this person tonight." And you had to ad lib the whole movie.
We've done that.
Finish.
We've done
And
that.
it was a lot of fun. And then you pick out some junior officer and you assign him to male buoy watch. And
Oh,
official
God,
order.
I haven't heard of that in a long time.
Yeah, it's an official order, and you tell them, "Look, we're so far at sea, they're going to drop the mail by plane. It'll be a buoy out there. It'll be orange. It's hard to see. So here's your binoculars, and we'll give you a whistle, and you stand on the forward edge of the ship, and you go forward and scan the horizon and look for this buoy." And they would let him do that for, maybe an hour or so. Then they'd call him to the bridge and tell him it was a big joke. And you do things on ship that just you're there 24/7, so you got to have fun a little bit.
We had I remember we had several times we had the same company of Marines aboard. We'd pick them up at Morehead City from Camp Lejeune, and we would got to know a lot of those guys. Now as a laundry, I got to know all of them. And I remember we had their first sergeant was named Sergeant 70, and he'd come down there to the just to see what we were doing in the laundry, but those guys were great. I enjoyed them.
We had a lot of fun, and then we tried to keep the ship in tip-top shape, and our gunnery sergeant would go and find gear adrift. He'd bring it up to the flight deck, put it in the middle, and say, "Marines, whose gear is this adrift?" And nobody would go reclaim it, of course, because you would have to do some extra work. So he'd just throw it over the side, and that would be it. I mean, you kind of have to do things on ship a little differently just to keep the discipline. And it's a mixture of discipline and fun. And it was a great time on the LSTs. It's a great ship, small crew, and the Marines and the Navy get really close. And we were in Somalia one time, and the weather was real bad. And I can remember the ship coming in early through the mist to pick us up. He said, "Splash the tracks." And we went out to the ship, and he had lobster and steak waiting for us for dinner. This is after spending weeks in the desert.
Yeah.
So it was just I still have fond memories of serving on the LST. Just great.
You said splash the tracks. I mean, you're driving the Amtrak's off the back.
Right. That's kind of hairy a bit because when you drive it out the back, the Amtrak goes under the water for a bit, and the water comes through the hatch. You start seeing the water drip down through the hatch.
I had some film. I had a Super 8 camera I had back then, and I filmed that one time. I don't know if I still have those films or not, but the ship would be going pretty fast, and the Amtrak's would go off the back, hit the water, and go completely under, and then the cam popped up, and they'd throw them hatches open. I can see it now.
It was it got your attention, and as you went to shore, it took a long time. The diesel fumes in the back. And as a commander, you got to stand up at least and stick your head out of the hatch. But then you would feel a tug on your trouser as the helmets full of vomit were passed to you to dump over the side and put back down. So, I could go on and on all night talking about ship and this and that. Plenty of stories to tell.
Well,
But
I've been seasick.
Yeah.
I tell you, I have.
Yeah, yeah, seasick is not good. I mean, it took me sometimes 20 minutes just to put my boots on because when you look at the laces and try to lace them up as the ship's going back and
Oh
forth.
man, I can feel it now.
I can feel it now too. I can feel it now.
Yeah, we had the bow doors and you had a ramp.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, so you had the bow doors, the old
Bow
fashioned.
doors, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
y'all went off on the front, yeah. But yeah,
I don't think I ever saw that operation on the Newport.
that they would fly off of it because we'd be cutting through the water pretty fast, and those things would just go right off. Yeah, it was really something to see.
While you were underway.
Oh yeah, they'd be, since it was back in the rear, you'd
We
be
had
cutting through the. I don't know. I think the fastest we ever got was they said we could go 25 knots. I think 23 was about the top what we hit.
Yeah, we had the beach.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Oh, I tell you, yeah, the old tees that they were different. They was I knew a guy. Gosh, he's been gone for years and years. He was on the LSC at Anzio, and they did trips back from Naples supplies to Anzio and back and forth. Yeah.
Okay, can we get on with the program now, guys?
Yes. Yeah.
This is the program, Todd. This is the program.
Okay, I guess it is, but truly could listen to this all night. This is fascinating to me and a lot of fun. But I do want to, for people who might not be familiar with Wayne Vansant, you might be familiar with some of his work. This is one of the first projects he worked on, and he's been the author. He's produced over 100 comic books. And many for the series The Nom, which came out in the late 1980s and continued for maybe 5 years. Don Nemchek, years ago, asked us, could you find the artist who did The Nom and get him on the program? And we did some searching and couldn't find the artist. And then I met Wayne in Washington, D.C. at AwesomeCon. He was on a panel that I was moderating. And man, was that fun to learn that Wayne had not only done The Nom, but a lot of other military history themed comic books, such as this graphic novel, Normandy, A Graphic History of D-Day, the Allied invasion of Hitler's fortress Europe. He did The Battle of the Bulge, a graphic history of the Allied victory in the Ardennes, the war in Korea, The Red Baron, Katusha, which is the story of a Ukrainian girl in the Red Army in World War II. Gettysburg, graphic history. So they're graphic novels, they're comic books, they're stories and history told with pictures and words. Days of Darkness, about the early years in the Pacific. Days of Wrath, about the Marine campaign and Navy campaign in the Pacific. And then this series of 5, Bertrand. You'll notice that Bertrand has very little hair. How did you choose Bertrand to have no hair?
I don't know. It's funny. I don't even remember where I got that name. It just came to me. And I remember one guy jokingly said, "That's not the way you spell Batman." And but he's a French Foreign Legionnaire that comes out of when he comes out of the he's a fugitive from the Spanish Civil War and joins the Foreign Legion and stays with them for 20 years. And mostly the stories I've done so far have been about World War II. I've got stories of Indochina and Algeria and the Congo and stuff like that later on. But that's all I've done so far.
Did you know from the time you were a kid that you wanted to be a comic book artist?
Yeah. I've always drawn, and I've always drawn little stories, little comic book stories. When I was 5 years old, we went to see 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the Disney from 1954, and it exploded my imagination. And I would sit there and draw, submarines and giant squid and stuff like that. And I would get, my mother would get me clay, and I'd make squids. I learned how to, I do sculpting with the clay and all. And So I've always been creative, and I've always wanted to tell stories, and I've always had ideas for stories. And I, grew up reading comics, but I also grew up reading a lot of stuff and a lot of television, a lot of war movies on TV, all black and white back then. We didn't get a color TV till about, I think, 62 or 3 or something like that. But and I think I understood pretty early that a lot of the stuff you see on TV wasn't real. I mean, a lot of the movies and stuff like that. But I learned pretty early about history, and I learned to talk to veterans. Now, I go to Mount Harmony Baptist Church, is right down the street. My mother was baptized there in 1937. I grew up in that church. And because my parents were the World War II generation, all my friends' parents were from the World War II generation. And I grew up hearing stories, asking questions, and I would always surprise them about what I knew. And I remember Otis Bentley. Otis has been dead for 25 years probably, but he was in the 3rd Division, 15th Infantry, Audie Murphy's outfit. And he was my Sunday school teacher for a while. And I remember the time he just happened to mention that he was in Italy. And I said, "What division were you in?" And I was probably 12 years old. He goes, "I was in the 3rd," and he was, and I would catch people like him surprised. I already knew a lot already. And so I grew up, Otis, and I remember Crawford Roddy was in the 85th Division, James Pugh was in the 97th. And I remember oh gosh, well, I can't, gosh, if I remember his last name, I can remember his first name because I see his son all the time. But this guy was in the in a combat engineering outfit in the Bulge, and I had a great uncle that was in a tank destroyer unit in Northwest Europe. I have another uncle that was in the Signal Corps from Guadalcanal, New Georgia, Bougainville, the Philippines, and he was in the Battle of Manila, and was in the occupation of Japan. So I grew up knowing,
immersed in this history, immersed in these stories. And so you carried that into the Navy with you. Did you do any cartooning or comic book writing in the Navy?
Well, this, you can't see it very well, but this cover, it's kind of, this thing's nasty too. It's kind of embossed to it. But I've got also, well, there's the guys that worked on the crew and worked on the,
look up to the camera.
Yeah, these guys worked on the this book. That's me right back there.
Oh,
and I've got other cartoons in here that, I mean, let me find some. Bill Malden would appreciate this, I tell you, because they were kind of definitely inspired by him. Let's see here if I can find them. Let's find one day.
You gotta get hold of that cruise book.
It's oh yeah, here's a little one. I don't know if you can see it that well on the bottom there. We had one time the foam that had a foam machine that for fighting oil fires and all that.
Yep.
It burst and flooded one of the living compartments. And I got a cartoon of a guy here. Can y'all see that very well? Probably not. But the switch says, the guy says, "That's not the way
you raise it." If you raise it up just a touch, it was down at the bottom of the screen. So hold it up a little higher for us.
How's that? Yeah, that is the guy. He said that that's not the light switch, is it? And it shows that he hit the switch and it turned on the and I got several in here. Let's see. Here's a guy coming out from the engine room. He's kind of looks like he's been down there too long.
This answers my question from the chat earlier about do all of these fun stories that Brad was talking about, have you like would you create that into a comic strip? And absolutely, you find all these different special moments that happen on a ship that you're able to. It's almost like creating a Far Side about about the Navy.
I tell you, I think this was an actual copy from Bill Malden.
Okay, what year is that cruise book, Wayne?
1971, I think. Yeah.
1971. Okay.
See that that's obviously a copy from a Bill Malden cartoon. Bill Malden was I found a copy of up front in the library at my high school, and I was smitten immediately by his stuff. And I got a few more in here, but so yeah, I've always drawn. I've always done stories, like that.
So when you got out of the Navy, did you go right into that work?
No. I went to the Atlanta College of Art after that, and it's I don't give it a whole lot of. Most artists learn to draw from this self-teaching, taught themselves. The Atlanta College of Art was just trying to make you a communist, I think, or something. I mean, it was just a real far left organization, and and there was a handful of guys that had been in the military, with me, and we all just kind of, but no, it was I had done artwork here and there, I'd do some drawings and sell them or something like that, but it wasn't until I had the opportunity to work for Marvel I really got into it and started making a living at it.
When did you start making a living at doing comics?
1987.
So it was that late.
Yeah. As I said, I've sold tobacco products, and I've never smoked. I sold tools. When I quit to do comics full time, I was the head of security at the High Museum in Atlanta, and which a job I loved. I mean, really, when I got out of the Navy, summer jobs. They have Six Flags Over Georgia over here, and I went to work in the summers over there as a security guard. They like to hire older guys. I was a little older, and most of the employees were teenagers, and they like security guards to be like older guys, and a lot of them were been in the military. One of my best friends, Joe O'Donnell. In fact, Joe, a lot of they used some of his ideas and stories in the NOM. I had him on the phone several times with editors and writers. He was with the 173rd Airborne in Vietnam, and I tell you, he's one of my closest friends, and I tell you, I've heard he's told stories like you wouldn't believe. And he was a South Georgia redneck who had an eye for detail, and he could tell you about things in detail, and a lot of his stories we use in the NOM.
An eye for detail. That's critical to somebody in your line of work. Sean Hall.
Just Joe Griffey's had a question.
Oh, Joe. Hey, Joe, how are you?
Hey, Todd, Sean, another great show. Wayne, I kind of have a two-part question. Did you find your comics, your drawings, put smiles on veterans' faces and made them laugh?
Well, that too, but as I say, a lot of my stuff, they weren't funny. So they, I think, but a lot of Vietnam vets liked the stuff I did in the NOM, and they've liked other things too. It was odd. The Battle of the Bulge book I did, I had met a guy at our church. I had never met him before. I had been going there for years, but he was with the 99th Division in the Battle of the Bulge. And I remember I gave him a copy of the book, and he says, well, that's really good. I said, I learned a lot. He says, but it's not the way I remember it.
Well,
because he looked at it from his, narrow point. But
Yeah.
yeah, I made a lot of them smile. But
Good. I guess my
too.
question, Wayne, is my good friend Adrian Cronauer wrote a movie, Good Morning Vietnam.
Yeah,
He couldn't even get anybody to touch it because nobody thought anything was funny or would put smiles on anybody's faces. And finally, Robin Williams, we all know Robin Williams purchased
Oh yeah.
But what did you do different that Adrian Cronauer didn't do? Because he couldn't get anybody to even read his script that he wrote, let alone look at it. What did you do different, if anything at all?
Listen. I just came when I worked on the Nom. I just came along at the right time because I wasn't the one that started the book. I didn't start the book. Doug Murray was the writer. In fact, he's a Vietnam vet. He'd be good to get on this program. But I tell you, Doug's kind of a recluse, I think. I haven't talked to him in years. I'll try to get in touch with him. I will. But I just happen to be at the right place at the right time. But you can put humor into anything. I mean, and people that don't, I don't know, people that say, if you say, well, I got a Vietnam book or Vietnam script, and the people that won't look at it at all, it's more than the problem of not being able to find humor in it. That there's a good story in every situation, and hey, listen, history's full of wonderful stories, and not all of them are pleasant, not all of them are funny, but that's just I don't know. As I say, I talked to a guy recently. My book Katusha, which is about a Ukrainian girl, that's the biggest project I've done. It's like nearly 600 pages, and a guy talked to me. I was at the convention in Charlotte. He says, I loved it. He says, you would tell tragic stories and terrible things, and then you'd have something funny happen, And one thing he mentioned, I have a scene in there. My character I mentioned is Katusha. She's a young Ukrainian girl. She's just 16 when the war began. She's 20 when it ends. But I have a scene in there where she's becomes a tank driver. Her and her sister are drivers for a guy who is the commander of a tank brigade of T-34s, and they're down in the tank, and their commander is up in the turret, and he looks over to the side, and several Soviet war correspondents are there, and one of them's oh gosh, I can't remember some of the Harrison was the guy's name, and there were several who were well known and true characters, and he's showing off, and he goes, it's kind of a gesture that the Russians would make. He goes, into the lair of the fascist beast, advance. And then it shows you down in the turret, down in the tank, and Katusha and her sister, who are down there, the drivers, they look at each other and they start, and you see them laughing from the bottom of the tank, and they were just making fun of him. So there's a million stories out. There's a million funny stories. I know my friend Joe in Vietnam, he has told, well, this is not a really funny story, but towards the end of his time there, he was with a mechanized infantry outfit, and they were APCs that fired mortars out of the big round turret on the top. And they were driving down this road. There was a column of tanks and APCs going down this road, and Joe was driving, and he had those like football helmets you see in Vietnam, the armored helmets like them. He was driving, had his head up out of the hatch, and his lieutenant was in the bathtub turret, had the 50 caliber in it, and there was an NVA sniper in the bushes just off the side of the road. And he fired a shot. And this guy was stupid. I mean, all those armored vehicles there, and he decided to fire at them. And the bullet hit the side of the APC, and his lieutenant dropped down into the hatch. And when he did, he lost control of the turret, and the 50 caliber swung around and hit Joe in the head. He was wearing the helmet, but it knocked him senseless. And Joe fell down in the hatch and lost control of the vehicle. Well, the vehicle went off the road and ran over the sniper, smashed him flat. And of course, that's a grim thing. That's not funny. But the way Joe would tell it, it had everybody in stitches. But that's, that there's humor in everything, so I like to, do that kind of thing, put those things in the story.
Daria, you have a question?
I do. I love listening to you, Wayne. This is really informative. I'm wondering what your process is, because like, do you draw and write the stories? Do you have to pitch a story idea? How do you do it?
Well, most of all my books that are, I go to a convention, I've got about 20 or 21 books, published books that I put out on the table. And I think of all those, only 2 I didn't write. There's a book on the Vietnam War that was written by, can't remember, sorry. And another book that is called, it's about Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass during the Civil War and the end of slavery in America. I didn't write that one, but I illustrated both of them. And everything else I have there, I wrote and illustrated. I've been pretty lucky. And it kind of depends what it is. Like I've been telling Todd, I want to do a book about the Italian campaign in World War II. It's something I've always been interested in. I've been to Italy twice, once about a year and a half ago, and once in 1980, which was the best trip because traffic was better. But and how I'm going to tell the story, sometimes I have actually written out a whole script, and usually for a publisher, I have to write out the whole script, and I'm sure I will for this one. I haven't got a publisher yet for it, but some of the things like the Patron books, I will sit and write 4 or 5 pages and do artwork for those pages. If the story is kind of loose and I'm kind of, not exactly sure how, if it's like a work of fiction or it's historical fiction, I will do it that way. I will, and I like to do it that way if I can. But with this Italian campaign book, I'm going to have to sit down, but I'm not quite ready yet. I'm kind of doing research, and if nothing else, just trying to get a handle on how I'm going to tell the story. And I haven't kind of quite got that figured out yet.
So your next book is the Italian campaign in World War II.
Yeah, it's going to be called The Bloody Road to Rome, because mostly the part of I'm interested in is from the invasion at Salerno and they crossing that, and the drive to Rome, which took from September all the way around to the next June. I mean, it was a long, hard, bloody. And it's funny, the veterans from Mount Harmony I talked to, there was always an extra, I don't know what, an extra sadness or something about
I agree.
the story. And
I agree.
That always stuck with me.
I always said that Bill Malden would never have become the great cartoonist he was if he hadn't been stuck in that horrific campaign.
I agree. In fact, I think I want to include like real people like Kim and Ernie Pyle and people like that. But I thought
Murphy. I'm so excited to read that, Wayne.
It's something that there's that Hammer and Anvil. That's one about trade. It was Dwight Zimmerman wrote it. Yeah,
Yeah, Dwight Zimmerman, forward by James McPherson, The
Yeah.
Hammer and the Anvil, Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, and the End of Slavery in America. It's a great American story. You illustrated it. You didn't write it, and it's one of the few that
Yes.
you didn't
I
author.
tell you, I want to tell you something interesting about that. Before, as they were getting ready to publish it, they wanted us to do a dedication. And usually, it's the writer would do a dedication, maybe or something like that. And they don't ask the artist to, but they asked me to do a separate dedication, who I was going to dedicate this book to. And I thought about it. And where I live here in Mableton, my father grew up in Douglasville, which is the next county over. And we went out there one time. He was big on the history of the family and the history of Douglas County and different things. And there were several areas out there we'd go out later. And he was 98 when he died. But we went out there, I guess it'd been about 10, 12 years ago or something. I remember there's an area there, it's called Dark Corner, and it's Douglas County. It's got kind of sandy, light sandy soil mostly, but this area, for some reason, the soil is dark and it's real wooded, and there's a place where the road kind of comes way down between the trees, and it's dark, all the trees. But there was a cemetery up there, and he wanted to go to. He'd never been to it before, but we found it. It's up in the woods, and there's about 25 graves, and the trees have grown up through these graves, most of them. There's old graves and markers. There's even slave graves up there. But when I did the dedication, there was the one grave that stuck with me. And see, I'm trying to remember the name. Oh gosh, she was I think, if I remember this right, great, I don't know how many greats, grandmother.
Okay.
And she was born in Ireland in 1776, and she died in Douglas County. I'm dedicating this to her, and died in Douglas County in 1866. And so around her are 13 markers of her 13 grandsons killed in the Civil War.
Wow.
So I used that as a dedication for my dedication, and that just blew everybody's mind, but
You also did All Quiet on the Western Front.
yes, that was a book I always wanted to do as a graphic novel. I've done the Red Badge of Courage too, but I don't have any. I've only got one copy of it. I did back in the early, about 2003 or something.
Bob Flage, how are you?
Great. My question might not be pertinent after Dara's question, but it relates to comic books. I didn't get the grasp of what your books were about until you talked a little bit more.
Yeah.
In '66, the Army had what we older guys called comic books. They were small, about the size of a Reader's Digest. That was an instructional manual that was handed out.
I've seen them. I've seen a lot of them.
They were written on like a 8-year-old basis, or maybe even younger.
I'm trying to remember the artist's name.
I was trying to find out, did you, before you went professional, did you research those, or
Yes, I tell you,
out
I
anything
saw.
about them?
I remember the guy I mentioned earlier that I worked for a guy for a good long while who did safety material for industry, and I remember he had a bunch of those. Because he had a construction company at one time and had so many problems with injuries and things like that with OSHA and all that he started a company called Safe Systems, and we did little comic books. And I had seen copies of those before, and I'm trying to remember the artist who did the artwork for a lot of those. Oh, one he had was called "How to Take Care of Your Baby," about the M16 rifle. And
Okay.
I'm trying to remember. There he is. Okay, it's his name might not even be on it. Oh, here it is. Will Eisner. Will Eisner is a legendary comic book artist from back in the 40s and even the 30s. Probably he's been dead for years, but he did. Yeah.
But it was like simple things like how to change a tire and
Sure. Well, and I'm telling you, when I worked for doing those safety things, I had the same guy picking up the same box at same several times, how to pick something correctly.
When did they terminate doing that?
Oh, I have no idea. I don't know when the Army. I don't know the Army. I know they did that during that time, and it was a good idea. I don't know if they still do. I don't think they do, but I don't know. I don't know what they do.
Okay, thank you.
You look real familiar to me for some reason. Don't know why, but
You just like his accent, that's all.
that's it. That might be it.
I found How to Strip Your Baby,
Uh-huh.
and I'm going to show that just because, yeah, this is so, it's so of the time.
Yeah.
And here, let me show this here. Play from current side. Okay, and many of you will remember this. And it's detailed instructions about how to take care of your.
He did a lot of different. Oh yeah, I remember those pages. He did a lot of other things too. A lot of other things for the Army. It's hey, it's a way to communicate. It's a great way to communicate.
Sean, I want to go to Sean, then I want to go to Renee Johnson. Yeah.
Well, two-part question. One, a couple of questions in the chat were, how long does it take to maybe do a cover of the NOM or to do a full issue? And then I have a more technical question after that.
That's impossible to say. It depends what's on the page. It depends what what kind of research you have to do for it, or is there something in that cover that I have to get especially right or something like that. Yeah. I don't think you saw these. I showed these earlier to Todd. Hang on. Where was that? I'm going to a model show in a couple of weeks, and I do a lot of. I carry a lot of. I have a printer over here that does 19 by 13 prints, and I will make posters. And I've done a couple of. Let's see, where are those? Okay, here they are. They're right here. This is a couple of tiger tank pictures, which will sell good at a model show. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's one, and here's another. And that the drawing of that didn't take too long. I mean, maybe a day and a half or something. But the color work, getting that right, took me longer. I color in different ways, and I do things on Photoshop, and then I'll print out and go back in with markers and that sort of thing. So it kind of depends what it is. I'm pretty fast. I'm not as fast as I used to be. I mean, when I did the NOM, at one point in time, I was about 8 weeks ahead, no, 8 months ahead on the book, and that was when I started doing some extra stuff. What are my cats over here doing?
Don Demchek. I want Don to chime in with a question or a comment.
Yes, I have a comment, question. Wayne, do you know the comic book artist Robert Crumb?
I know of him. I've never met him. He did all the underground stuff and all that, but I'm not. I remember seeing this stuff, but I've never.
He was famous for the Keep On Truckin'.
Oh yeah,
back in the 70s. Yeah,
they say there's a documentary about him that is really good, but I've never.
There is. I viewed that documentary. I don't mean to speak over you, but that documentary is excellent. He was quite a character.
Oh yeah. Well, I have known some odd people in the comics. Now it's just interesting. I knew a guy that worked on a lot of the underground comics at that time. That time he was doing that, And this guy was from Texas. I never met him, but he was an artist that had that kind of style. But he also did some real good historical stuff about Texas. He did one called Los Tajinos, which is the Mexican Texans, and through the had the Alamo and all that stuff. It was really good. He did one about Quanah Parker, I remember, that I always admired. He's dead now, but this guy was a real. He did a lot of the stuff kind of like what I do. He was that kind of interested in using his art that way. But no, I never knew Art Crump.
Renee Johnson, you sent me a chat here with an observation about Wayne.
Oh, I just wanted to wish him a belated happy birthday from
thank you.
yesterday.
Yes, that was yesterday. 76.
You're just a kid.
You
got a long way to go.
See you later. As I say, I got a lot of longevity in my family.
Yeah, you've got a lot more work ahead of you. I have a question. How do veterans, as you mentioned this before about the Bulge veteran, how do veterans respond to your stuff? I mean, if somebody who served in Vietnam read the Nam comic book, or
mostly positive, positively, mostly positive.
Do they ever correct you like they correct me endlessly about mistakes that I make?
Well, I tell you, I've had some pretty good people to help me. I mentioned my friend Joe, who was from the 173rd Airborne. He, when I knew him when I was doing the Nam, and he had so many good story ideas that I'd get him on the phone with the people at Marvel, and it got real confusing. He came over to my apartment, and I got him on one phone, and I was on the other, and all they knew was they couldn't understand who was talking because we both had a Southern accent, but he had, as I say, he was South Georgia redneck, but he was very well read, and he was just very observant, and some of his stories made great issues of the Nam. So I don't think I've ever had anybody negative about it. And this was funny. I remember I have a friend that lives in Rome, Georgia, who was in Vietnam. He contacted me back in those days when I was doing that, and he would come down every so often at conventions and stuff like that. And I remember he had a lot of photographs. He was a truck driver in Vietnam. He wasn't in a combat outfit, but he took a lot of pictures. And I remember one picture he took was of this big billboard of it was a toothpaste ad. Can you imagine in Vietnam, a toothpaste ad? And I forget the name of it, but it has this smile in Vietnamese, with this toothbrush and all that. And I remember there was an issue of the Nam where had these guys on a patrol going down this road, and there's this big, billboard, and people, we got a lot of mail in the Nam, and I remember people wrote in about that had been in Vietnam and realized, I got a lot of, I had forgot all about the mail we had the Nam, so we got a lot of good things from people. I don't remember too many people complaining about anything. That pistol I drew wrong one time. Somebody said about
pistol, right?
A pistol.
And how did you draw it wrong?
It was supposed to be a 45, and for some reason I drew it in like a 9mm or something. Now I remember one guy when I did the Days of Darkness. I have about Pearl Harbor, and I had the Arizona battleship blowing up, and some guy wrote in and said it only had 2 guns per turret instead of 3, and I was right on that. It had 3 guns per turret. So I haven't had too many people complain. I remember Larry Hama, who was my first editor, wrote the introduction to Katusha, and he commented about. I had called him. I said, "Would you mind looking at this? And you could do a blurb or something before we print it." And he wrote a full-page introduction. It's beautiful. and he talks about how I knew I got everything right. You know, I mean, I'm sure. Hey, listen, but you know, you want to make the uniforms the right for the time. You want to do the tanks right. That, and I want to even get the. I made like 3 trips to Ukraine researching that.
So you did. You went to Ukraine to do the research for.
Oh yes, yes, yeah, several times. Well, I tell you, I've had some. I tell you, I've had some great experiences doing things like that.
So you really do your research. That's why people don't complain. You know what you're.
Yeah.
You know what you're drawing. You're
Well,
not drawing any
yeah.
vehicle. You're drawing the right vehicle that belongs in that year, that place.
That last trip I made over there in 2012. I spent 2 weeks, and you could hire somebody pretty cheap to drive you around and translate for you. And I had this guy named Victor with me, and we had a blast. And you learn how much more societies are alike than you do, and all that. But we went to places, and we would go down. We'd go be driving along on this road, and there would be a little village you're going through. And I remember stopping one time. There was a guy on a wagon, horse and wagon. You still see things like that over there. And we asked him. And my driver asked, "Is there anybody in this village that was here? That was around during World War II?" And he said, "There's a lady right down there working in her garden. Go talk to her." And we went to this woman. She was born the same year my father was born, 1925. And she had, she said the worst thing in her life was the terror famine of the early 30s that Stalin, starved 4 million Ukrainians. And she was there during the occupation. And one thing she said, I remember her saying, she had of course white hair and little white whiskers. I remember that. And her hands were literally dyed by the soil. I mean, her hands were the color of the soil. She had worked in it all her life. And she had had a puppy and a kitten out there playing while we were, and all these these kids from the neighborhood, when we talked to her, they all came around and listened. It was really interesting. But she said, one thing she said the frontline German soldier, she said, was a gentleman, but the ones that came behind them were the monsters. I remember her saying that. And she had an uncle that they thought was a partisan, and the Germans killed him, cut him up, and threw him down the well. And there was a village on the other side of the tree, she pointed out, that they thought was partisans, and the Germans wiped it out one night. And she said you could see the reflections of the fire on the cloud, the low clouds. And we went through, and just I talked to Red Army officers and soldiers that were lived there, and also I talked to a lot of guys that were in the Ukrainian insurgent army that fought the Germans and the Russians at the same time. Man, those guys, they were really interesting, I tell you. But it's anyway. I like to do my research.
Yeah. Let's see. Do I have any questions? Any questions, comments? Because I certainly do. Sean.
So my question is a little more technical in the sense that as you sort of storyboard this, and I can only imagine just sort of like in your brain is quite fascinating to be able to write out the story, understand the point of view of the characters you're trying to represent, make all of the characters distinct, but also as you start to create the art, the storyboarding of the story, it's almost like a film. Like you're a director, and what do I shine the action on?
A lot of people have made that comparison. I have known artists that do tell their stories in comics more like a film, but I'm not quite. I don't quite try to go. There's sometimes scenes that come out that way, but as I say, I don't know. I think I have some natural storytelling ability of that type, because I have, as I say, Larry Hama, I've always heard stories about how he had his storytelling boot camp, and I've heard artists talk about how he made their lives miserable. He never did that to me. I got along so good with Larry. I have fond memories of always working with him. So, I guess I've looked at enough comics and read enough comics growing up that I understood what comes next. Now, I do have a tendency to do this. If I'm doing a story about the war in the Pacific, I have a tendency to have the action going from the right to the left. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, that's almost anime style, Eastern style.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah, but if I'm doing Normandy, I do from left to right because they're heading east. And I have found that I do it that way. And in Vietnam, I don't remember the Vietnam stories. I don't remember any particular way, but I just have a natural ability, natural way to do that. In Katusha, it's almost, you look through that book, they're moving west. I mean, that's just a natural thing for me. I mean, I just because it's all been done. I'm just telling them what happened.
Ira has a great question here in the chat. He's curious if the comics code ever interfered with any of your vision or storyboards or censored anything, changed anything, or if the military ever rejected or reviewed anything.
No. Well, now let's see. Now I tell you, I remember when we did the NOM, I had several issues where there was a character. We had this Marine character that carried a pump shotgun. And I had several scenes, and I tell you, I must have been thinking Sam Peckinpah on these scenes because I have him shooting these guys, and then falling back and all kinds of stuff. I wasn't particularly drawing blood and guts coming out, but I was having the impact and things coming out. And Marvel changed some of that. They didn't want chances with the comic code. And to me, it wasn't really that visible, but so I, did have that one time with that. And I've had several people that objected to something I did. I remember I did a cover for one of the Bertrand books, and the cover, I had him shooting a German and had the round coming through him, like that. And he didn't want to do that, so I changed it, which I understand. That's fine. But now, when I tell you, when I did All Quiet on the Western Front, I did that exactly the way the book said. I figured I didn't want to change Remarque's stuff at all. And he was so graphic and so many times, like walking through a trench and realizing he was standing on a man's guts or something like that. I put everything in that book that was told in his novel. I figured I didn't want to make any changes like that.
This is such an interesting subject about showing this kind of graphic violence in comic books. That is an issue that has been with us for literally almost 100 years. This issue of violence in comic books. But it's almost as if comic books do have this license to show that side of war. I mean, the really bloody side of war, the side.
Well, when I started reading comics in the late 50s, early 60s, when I was reading probably most of the comics, you had a strong control by the comic code, you couldn't show a body. In fact, I always remember Gunner and Sarge stories going through the jungle and a sniper shoot them, and they fire up in the tree, and a Japanese helmet would come falling out. Yeah, and that was all.
That's all.
You didn't see that.
Bill Malden never, in his 700 odd World War II cartoons, never showed a dead body. Never showed blood. Never showed blood.
I understand that. I don't think he could. No, that would it wouldn't have been the same thing. Yeah. It wouldn't have been the same thing. It really wouldn't.
Right. Barb Smith, how are you, Barb?
I'm great, representing the Navy.
Representing the Navy.
Deal.
Excellent. Her husband Bob was on the USS Franklin Delano Roosevelt
And
Oh, wow.
Intrepid. And the Intrepid. Yes, sir.
and the Intrepid.
Hey, the Intrepid, we several times were ran into sailors from the Intrepid, I remember, in Philadelphia and in Norfolk, you know.
Wonderful.
several
So,
times.
sir, I'm just trying to ask the same question that had been asked before. I can't see who asked it, but I just saw the film Superman, and Crypto, the dog, the CGI dog, I think stole the movie.
Uh-huh.
So somebody asked in the chat, how do you feel about AI? Do you think it's a competition that's going to affect graphic novels, or?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that much about it, really. Hey, listen, I just turned 76. I'm not going to be doing this too much longer, no matter what. So I'm not really worried about it. But I think AI, of course, you know, a lot of things now are made. A lot of movies are made with a lot of, you know, special effects and created things like that. And I think AI will add to that. And it's just like, all right, my book, Katusha. I would love to see Katusha as a miniseries on cable. I would love. I mean, it would. I think it'd be great. Of course, it would be. I remember when I first had the idea of that, I thought, well, hey, yeah, we can use the Ukrainian army. They ain't got nothing better to do, but they're a little bit busy right now, so I guess we can use them. So, I think a lot of this stuff, this AI stuff, and all, could create scenes and make it possible. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that much about it. Hey, listen, I had to, Todd had to walk me through figuring out how to do this tonight. So, I don't know that much about it. But
perhaps documentarian Steve Mancini can do a documentary on Katusha. That would be awesome.
I would love to see it, boy. I tell you, I would. I think it'd be a great miniseries. In fact, a guy contacted me from Vancouver several years ago and was interested in that, but never heard back from him again. So I don't know, but I would love to see that happen. So I don't know. I don't know enough about AI to tell you. I really don't.
One more interjection, if I may, about the Navy.
Uh-huh.
My husband and I just spent a couple days at the Buffalo Naval Yard.
Oh, really?
Fabulous place to explore. If you haven't been there before,
no, I haven't.
It was great. A few of our reenactors from our area participated in the weekend event. It was so fabulous. I highly recommend it, especially for you Pennsylvanians. Get out there and see Buffalo Naval Yard. It's great.
The Buffalo Military Park is just
neat,
wonderful.
I've been to the Philadelphia Navy Yard, where a ship was built, and later on we went into Portsmouth for a while. That's the only ones I've been to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wayne.
Yes.
You want to look at some Bill Malden cartoons and have you comment on them?
Oh, yeah, let's do that. Good.
I'd like to get your Bill Malden. For those of you who don't know, he was a GI himself. He was in the 45th Infantry Division. He was a very young man, 21, 22, 23 years old when he was doing these gritty, realistic combat cartoons in Italy, mostly during World War II. And this was very different from what anybody else at the time was doing.
Oh, I tell you. And, it's funny. This is a comment I think of too. I remember reading in one of his books, might have been an Upfront, I don't know. But his two characters, Willie and Joe, Willie, he said, was in his early 30s, and Joe was in his early 20s.
Right. And
they don't hardly look alike at all. They don't look different. They don't look that. But people that have been in combat, can't tell how old they are.
Yeah, you can't tell how old they are.
Yeah. I always remember that one. That was at Anzio.
Wished I could stand up and get some sleep.
Yeah. God.
It's really, it's like, and he always said, you laugh at first and then you look at it a little bit longer and
absolutely.
You realize how sad it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, I loved him, I tell you. And in his details, and of course, his attitude about officers got him into a little trouble with Patton. But hey, listen, everybody was for him. Everybody, 99% of people for him. Oh yeah, that's a good one.
This is such a good one. But you can imagine, Wayne, and I imagine you when you're depicting a soldier like this with all his equipment, and you
Yeah.
better get all this right.
Oh, absolutely.
This better be slung over the correct shoulder, the right, trench knife has to be hanging there. It's got to be exact.
There's a kid on I say he's a kid, he's probably in his 20s, a guy on YouTube. It's called World War Wisdom. And it's this young guy who's a World War II reenactor. And he has all these programs about equipment and stuff like that. And he's really entertaining and interesting. You ought to check him out. It's called World War Wisdom.
World War Wisdom. Okay, I'm going to write that down.
Check him out. He is good.
And I was going to ask you, how do you do your research? What source books do you or reference books do you use or references?
I got more books. I need to start culling out. I tell you, I got too many books.
And you use the Osprey?
I love those. Yeah, the Osprey books are really good. I love those. They got good reference material and all that. But and I use a lot of books with photographs, and there's some books I've had all my life. I mean, and of course you go to the internet, you can find a lot of stuff on the internet, equipment and pictures and stuff like that. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks, Willie. I'll go look for some mud that ain't been used.
He's got that Hotel Taft.
He's got the Hotel Taft. Yeah.
But yeah, all that stuff he's got, that he got on. He I tell you. And I remember in the movie, To Hell and Back, Audie Murphy, his friend says, you'll be really useful when you get home. He says you can shoot a man from 1,000 yards. You can throw a grenade closer more than anybody in the neighborhood, and you can bathe in ditch water.
That's right. You can sleep standing up. You can do all kinds of things that people back home
can't do. I was housebroken. Yeah.
The hell I wasn't housebroke.
I mentioned, I was telling you earlier about the Italian campaign book I want to do. And I wanted to create some fictitious characters. And I wanted to do a character in there that's, I wanted to have an Italian family. And the girl is like a 20, 21, and she's a medical student. She's studying to be a doctor. But I wanted to somehow in this book show after the war a photograph of her in her office. And on the wall is a sketch of her done by Bill Malden. Wouldn't that be good?
That would be very good. That would be, he probably dated her. That would probably.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah. I love his stories about when he was in Chicago before the war at art school. You remember those?
Yeah.
Yeah. He, it was in his book, The Brass Ring.
Right.
Oh man, they were good stories. Just everything is so believable. Oh, yeah. I tell you.
Right, Joe. When we ain't fighting, we should act like soldiers.
And they got and a couple of they all got tankers jackets on.
Yeah.
I tell you, that is my favorite jacket of all time. I've got 3 of them. One I was about 25 years old. It's wore out, but I got one. In fact, I got one to wear to Italy with me, and I got the 5th Army patch on it.
Yeah. So how has technology changed your work over the years? You've been doing this.
When I first went to work for Marvel, the stories I did for Savage Tales, I penciled and inked them. And what you did the stories in pencil, 11 by 17 board, and then you would send them to Marvel, Federal Express, and ink, and somebody else would do the lettering right on the artwork. And then they send it back to you, and you'd ink it. Well, now with the NOM, I started they just let me do pencils for a long time. It was pencils to stories, and somebody else lettered them. And the inker was a guy named Jeff Isherwood, and he lives in Canada, Toronto, I believe. I saw him last month in Charlotte. He comes to that convention. good friend of mine, been known him for years and years. But he inked it, and several other artists inked it at different times. But later on, when I started inking doing some work for other publishers, because I told you I got 8 months ahead on Marvel, and I got 8 months ahead, I had time to do some work for some other publishers. And my editors saw my inking with those publishers, and they gave me about 150% raise and had me inking my own stuff from then on.
Your own inking.
And it was, best thing I ever did was do that work for those extra publishers, and because I was always back then was fast. I'm not near as fast as I used to be. Well, now when I went to DC in April with y'all for that, I was doing that work for the Army, the books, and hang on, it's right over here. I did this little book about the birth of the U.S. Army for them.
Yeah.
And I'd already had the script when I went up there. They had me do the color. It's funny. They had this Medal of Honor comics, and they have like four stories in there, 8 pages each. And I've done a number of them, but they've done a couple of books like this. I did one on Pont de Hoc too, the Rangers on D-Day. And they want to do this one for the anniversary of the founding of the U.S. Army. And he sent me that script. I already had it. I was working on it. And then early May, he called me. It was after I was back from that trip. The editor, Joe, what's his name? Joseph Craig, yeah. And he called me and he said, we'd like to have this out before the anniversary. And then he didn't say anything. No, he didn't breathe. He didn't make a suggestion or anything. Well, what he was saying, we need this in a hurry.
Yeah.
and I says, well, I guess I'm going to be up late a couple of nights working on this. And I did get it out plenty of time for him. But anyway, now one of the things that changed different now, the stuff I do for them, they do the lettering, but I never even send them the artwork. Well, what I do is I wish I had something handy I could show you. I should have thought of that. I do little thumbnails.
Okay.
I do like an 8.5 by 11. I have a little page line I print out on my computer, and I sketch out what it looks like, and I send that to the editor first.
Okay.
And I'll do that with everything I've done. I've done that since I worked on the NOM.
So it's thumbnails of every page in the book that you envision.
Yeah.
Just so that the editor could get a sense, the publisher could get a sense of what the book looks like.
Yeah. And, I don't want to, I want to give them more than I can up front so they know what they're getting.
Right.
Anyway, now I'll do the pencils and I'll do the full pencils, and I'll send it to them. I'll do it in different stages. And they never get the original artwork. Used to, you send all that stuff to Marvel and then send it back to you.
Right.
But that stuff they never see it. I just send it electronically. And of course, the lettering is all done electronically too. Like, on what's the program for publishing. I got it right here somewhere. Let's see now. Let me find that. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Adobe InDesign. That's what it is. And it took a while for me to learn that thing, I tell you.
Ira Martin, I want to share this. You put this in the chat.
Yes.
This is an example of the kind of caricatures that were done overseas.
Yeah, so this was my buddy Joe Gabrielli from Love Battery, Marine Corps.
Uh-huh.
Now, I know Jerry Lauer was semi-famous as a character and was also there. And just as people passed by, he'd do their character. And a lot of guys cherish these type drawings more than they did any photographs.
Uh-huh.
The flies
Oh,
crack
yeah.
me up.
Oh,
Sure
this
they
is
do.
this is fantastic.
So that would
Fantastic
be
stuff.
that would be him going home. So he's at his worst, at his dirtiest, at his grossest.
Yeah.
So this is,
It looks pretty rough.
yeah, Jerry Lauer. It looks like here, 12 December 1952, it looks like.
Which I
And
believe is the right date, based on Joe's service. Someone else put the 3 in that didn't really have any business doing that. But
yeah. So, and you see the flies around his head, the flies
Yeah. Some of them
around his
died.
breath. He's got the cigarette in his mouth. He's looking as rough as can be.
that's just one of the few that I had on hand I could share real quick.
Yeah. You know, there's always somebody that's going to draw a little bit, you know, that can in the military.
Do you draw every day, Barbass?
Not every day. But most days I imagine I do. As I say, getting this Italian campaign thing started, it's been more. Well, as I say, I've been working on some of these posters lately for this convention I got coming up. But I've been that's mostly been brain, you know, working on how to do this and kind of, you know, and I've done a little bit of it. And in fact, no, it's not down here. But I've done some, and I've decided I was kind of going in the wrong direction. This is going to be one of my latest things, you know, last things probably. I mean, I've still got hopefully a few years at this, but still, I want it to be real good. I want it, you know, be special. And so, but I haven't, but I draw most days. Yeah.
And it's quite a tall order. I mean, as you know, somebody who's worked on books, written books, one of the the big challenge of writing a book is not what to cover, but what to leave out.
Oh, absolutely.
So here you are writing a history of the Italian campaign, and you've got to make really tough decisions about stories that you're not going to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I've read the last year or so of just about everything that is new about it. I know a real good source is, of course, I have a lot of older books like the, you know, Bill Malden stuff and Ernie Powell and all that, which are great sources. But what's the guy's name? Rick Atkinson. He wrote the trilogy about, you know, the middle book is about the Italian campaign. That's really good.
Right.
The Day of Battle. That's
the Day
really
of Battle. Right.
But it's also, are you familiar with James Holland?
Yes.
His books, he's come up the last couple of years with several books on the Italian campaign that are, it's his book Casino 44 is as good a book about Monte Cassino as I've read. It is really good. I like him. You see him all over YouTube, you know, doing tours, the battlefields and stuff like that. I really like him. There's a lot of material to pull from. I just gotta decide how to do it. You know, I don't know. It just every project's a little bit different.
Right.
And I just want to get this one right.
Right. Any other questions here from people in the audience? Any comments? Is there
Realize we didn't do our station break.
Well, we didn't do our station break, and we should. This is Veterans Breakfast Club. We meet every Monday night at 7 p.m. and every Thursday night at 7 p.m. And we have a program coming up on Thursday, and that is, let me get my screen on. It's the Race for the Bomb.
Oh, wow.
Glenn Flickinger. Let me get here the slide. This is Thursday night. Let's see. I thought Glenn might be joining us. We'll be talking about Leslie Groves.
Oh, wow. I saw that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be coming up on Thursday at 7 p.m. And then a week from tonight, we are back. We haven't done it in a while. I think it's
Jeopardy.
We're doing a Veterans Breakfast Club Jeopardy, and this is just a free for all, right, Sean? No teams. We just, you know, have somebody pick a category, pick an amount, and we start. We'll do 2 rounds of Jeopardy, then a final Jeopardy. So please do join us for that. It's always a lot of fun. I do want to invite people to submit Jeopardy questions if they'd like. I know John Kramer has submitted some great ones for the Air Force. We welcome suggestions. If you have a good question or 2 or 10 or 5, we'll try to squeeze them in. Join us. That'll be a week from tonight.
Oh, neat.
Wayne, you'd be welcome to join us if you can manage to get on Zoom.
I'll have to find out more about how to do this.
Yeah, exactly. And then also we have our magazine, our Veterans VBC magazine. We've sent that out. It should have hit your.
Yeah, I saw one about VJ Day.
That's right. That's right. This is it. Here it is. This is our summer edition, the 80th anniversary of VJ Day. We sent it out to 11,000 households. Print out another 7,500. Hand distribute those. I only have 1,000 left in my garage. So that gives you a sense of how many that we've shipped out in batches of 25, 50, 100. If you would like some, let us know. And if you didn't receive this in the mail, let us know that too. We can make sure we'll send you this for free. We print this quarterly. And this is our VJ Day edition. We have stories of veterans remembering VJ Day, and then a long history of the road to surrender by the Japanese. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Wayne, was there ever a pull to go mainstream and do superhero comics?
No, not at all. In fact, it was funny. We did one issue of the NOM, which had superheroes. It was like a what if there were these GIs were talking, what if there were superheroes in Vietnam? We had Spider-Man and Iron Man, and I can't remember. There were 3 different ones we had. And I did the artwork, and it bothered me, the fact that all my friends were calling me, want to buy those pages. So no, that was the only time I've done anything like that. I've just never been interested in that. And there's plenty of artists that want to do that, but there's not many people that want to do what I do. So,
And there really aren't. There aren't that many people who do graphic nonfiction books that specialize in history, war.
Well, the artist I grew up really liking was Russ Heath was one. Of course, Joe Kubert is Sergeant Rock, and I liked him too.
Right.
But I really liked John Severin, if you remember him, and Sam Glansman. Now I got to meet Sam. In fact, I got a picture over there on the wall that he gave me. Here, I'll pull it down. It's here.
And we recently had, was it Carl Shakatano, The Heart That Fed? He had that graphic memoir about he and his dad. We had him on last year, was it?
Right.
Oh, okay. I remember that. Hearing about him. Yeah. Can you see this? Sam gave me that artwork a long time ago.
Oh yeah, sure.
Got me in a picture with Sam down here at the bottom at the Marvel offices. It's kind of slipped out of the frame a little bit, I think. But anyway, it gives you a little idea. But I always liked Sam's work. To me, I don't know, there was something about his stuff that looked like 1940s. I mean, the people looked like it's looking at an old photograph of World War II. Yeah. I really liked his stuff.
And it's that authenticity that's so hard to capture.
Yeah. That's why that's why I'm especially proud of Katusha, because I was able to not only just to draw things that I would have never been able to see unless I went over there, and put and learn things about it that I'd never heard before.
I'm going to ask you, Ira Martin asked if you were involved with the NOM when they put the Punisher in the NOM.
I didn't do any artwork on those.
Okay, you did not do that.
They had the regular Punisher artists to do those. Yeah.
Steve Corbett, I love your comment here in the chat. That a very interesting program. but you could have talked for the first, you could have stuck with the LST conversation for the 90 minutes too. I could totally agree. What is it about listening to these veterans who shared this experience, kind of talk about it just free form, that is so fascinating and funny, you know? It's I love
tell
it.
you, I got a good story and just happened to come to mind. A guy that was on one of the guys on our ship, he was a regular Navy guy, and he told about one of the older LSTs had been to Europe, and all you guys that were in the Navy know what the sound and security watch is. You know, the guys, the engineers, you know, on the ship, the engine room guys, they would go through, they'd have a watch they call the sound and security watch, and he would go through the ship when you're out at sea, and you have these little brass disc things in the floor, and he had the weight on the brass band, like he was measuring the water in the bilges throughout the ship on this watch, and be sure there was no damage or anything like that. Well, one of those old LSTs was coming back from Europe, and it got in a bad storm, and it split one of the seams in the hull, and it really wasn't any danger or anything because it was contained by the bilges and all that stuff. But the security watch guy didn't realize it, but he went to one of those things, opened it up, and he put the weight thing in there and went down, and it went out the bottom of the ship. So he was all of a sudden getting, you know, yard after yard of stuff he was going out, and it scared him to death, you know. And it turned out that it wasn't a really problem, but I've always liked that. That's a true story.
Brad, do you want to close us out with a comment?
Well, as we were talking, another story came to mind. So this will be a quick one, but on the LST, the Fast Freddy, I was the CO troops. As a company commander, I was a senior Marine aboard, so I was responsible for everything that my Marines did, right and wrong. And I would always get in a little bit of trouble when we crossed the line and did something that was funny, but not too funny. And one time we had the Russians, we interacted with the Russians periodically. They would come in close contact with our ship, either by submarine or aircraft. And I don't know, these Marines were really devious, but we had a Russian bomber overfly our ship, and it came back for a second pass. These Marines got in formation. It was like a precision drill movement. They dropped their trousers, and they all bent over and mooned the Russian aircraft at the same time, and popped right up, buckled their trousers, and that was it. It was like a precision movement. They must have been rehearsing this.
They rehearsed it.
But then after that, the one MC came on and said, CO troops to the bridge, CO troops to the bridge. And I had to go up and see the captain of the ship, and he was saying, we shouldn't do that kind of stuff, but he was still smiling at the same time. I just said, gotcha, sir.
Sure.
Barb.
So I remember I was about 7 years old when my father was coming back from Germany. We came aboard the USS Darby. We took a 10-day cruise back to the States. And I remember in our bedroom, my little sister's crib rocking, back and forth until my dad stabilized it. But it never seemed to bother my mother when she was at the gift shop shopping for a diamond ring. No problem there.
Now, what was that ship?
USS Darby.
What kind of ship was that?
I don't know. I think it might have been a destroyer. I looked it up just recently. I think it was named after General Darby.
Oh, Bill Darby?
Okay.
Darby's Rangers.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Probably so. It's a good one to name it after.
Thank you. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your contribution. Wonderful at night.
Thank you.
So we will see, Barb. I'll talk to you whether this is the destroyer escort in question.
Oh, USS Darby.
What's the destroyer? Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you
Great.
so much, Wayne, for joining us tonight. And thanks to the rest of you for being part of this conversation. Always good to talk to a Navy LST veteran, and great to talk, kind of shop with you about the work that you do, Wayne. Thank you.
Thanks. Enjoyed it.
I'll see you again. Take care, everybody. Good night. And we'll see you Thursday night. Happy Bastille Day.